the Raiders go out and make a move for Geno. I mean, it's not like they didn't know the draft was coming up and Shedeur was going to be in the draft. You know
Right.
what I mean? You know, like why do that so early and just or and you could have still taken Shedeur.
Yeah, up until the fifth round, you could have gotten Shedeur, and you already had Genty, and you've got Geno's a quality quarterback.
Just that was his mentor. That was a guy he practiced with all of these when he as younger years, and he's stayed in contact with and throw with in the off seasons. And what happened with that? What happened with the NFL ties? That Dion has that the Shedeur sees in every off season with the NFL. Teams, if you will, coaches or what have you. Like, I wonder what happened. What had those people changed, or were they lying to Dion the entire time just because Dion is a lovable person and
But
they
that
want to stay in Dion's graces? Do you expect to see Shedeur in this regular season?
I, I think it's wide open, and I think they've hurt themselves as a team because I don't think it's ever worked where you have two rookie quarterbacks.
Shedeur comes in with so much popularity, and even with a guy, even with my guy Tebow, when he got into the league, man, like with the Broncos, they started off struggling. The fans were just screaming, Tebow, 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 without even knowing that he was struggling in practice. You know what I mean? Like, and they just know the name and they want to see him play. So Dylan is not even going to have a opportunity or chance to grow on the field. He's not going to be able to be Caleb, and how Caleb like was able to struggle throughout the season at times and grow and improve. Dylan is not going to have that opportunity at all.
And I, he's definitely not going to have what Caleb Williams had because neither one of these guys is a first round pick now, and that matters in how they're going to be treated by these organizations going forward. But I mean, I kind of feel even though he was drafted higher than Shedeur, I think he has to have the Kirk Cousins mentality. Just put your head down, grind, do what you can with the opportunities you get. Don't let the outside noise do anything and become the favorite guy in the building. Let Shedeur make mistakes. But you walk into that building day one, you say hi to the janitor, the receptionist, everybody you meet. You get donuts for everybody and you work your ass off on the field. And you just be that guy that just like kind of has like grassroots internal love from the organization. You're not going to win the public love thing because Shedeur, he's going to have haters and he's going to have defenders and he's going to have a circus. And if he doesn't focus on grinding with the work and focus on treating people in that building right and being a guy that's valued in that locker room, he's hurting himself. And you can't control that. But if you're Dylan Gabriel, you can control yourself. And you do all the right shit and you work your ass off and take what comes. Because if you do that right, even if they feel compelled to go with Shedeur at some point, if you've put in the work and you perform when given the opportunity, you'll have another opportunity somewhere else. And that's all you ask for as a third round pick, to be honest.
Do you think he got screwed? Do you buy into that? What that it was something external going on and all of that stuff there.
It feels that way. I mean, it does feel that way. It does
It feels
feel,
dirty.
yeah, it feels dirty. But again, like a lot of times, like dirty doesn't happen like as a pre-planned, premeditated thing always. It doesn't happen like, whatever, 24 hours before the draft, there's a conference call with the owners and said, hey, we're going to fuck this guy. Here's how we're going to.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that way. But like things happen in like tipping points. Like, once he slid and then it starts side, then I think question like now, you're in the second or third round and you weren't thinking about taking him. You got your eyes on other guys, and now it's like, well, is he enough of a talent that we just change our plan and just get him to get him and it just then it's kind of like you're just seeing more and more teams pass him up, and then at some point it's like, well, hey, how long is he going to be here? Maybe we'll just grab him in the fifth round. It just becomes like a practical thing. If nobody's touching him, you don't need. I guess what I'm trying to say, you don't need 32 teams in lockstep of some sort of grand conspiracy to say we ain't taking this guy. Like you might need a handful of teams that it would make sense to not take him, and then a lot of the other teams are just going to kind of fall in and be like, really on our list anyway. We thought he'd be gone and whatever. I'm like, well, are the Chiefs going to take him? Like, what would that do? You know what I mean? Almost half the
I,
league was
I,
a no take for other reasons.
I like your take on that. It's almost as if like a natural slide. Okay, like a couple of teams, whatever, and then after that, it's a natural slide. And I haven't heard that particular take. My take is different. I buy into the fact of the reports. It makes a lot of sense, and I agree with. I think the narrative of Dion, oh, they don't want to draft Dion's son, and it's but they were okay with Manning's son, Manning, and all of that. I think all of that is BS and foolishness. I think all of that is fucking foolishness. If the Dion piece of it, I think if you're a weird person who thinks race had anything to do with this, I think that's total BS. I think what happened is I think that Shedeur and Dion, who was both of their agents. I know he's not Shiloh's agent anymore, or advisor or
That
whatever.
was the best lines of the whole draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, not working out so good, so I had to hire one.
Right. I think what happened is that they, the couple of teams that they didn't want to go to, he bombed the interviews.
Yeah,
Now, me as an HR recruiter for damn near 10 years now, you'll be shocked and surprised what people who really don't care if they get the job or not. They're kind of just whatever.
yeah,
How they will act and do in an interview, or if you could tell if somebody's maybe their mom's forcing them to do the interview or whatever. Like you can tell, like it's there, and this is an NFL quarterback, like a job, like this is the number one position in the number one sport in America. You
yeah,
can't come to an interview and fucking bomb it and then think, okay, just because the second, third round, that particular team is just going to take you just because you're sliding. That team is like, fucking screw you. You came
yeah,
to this interview, you wasn't prepared, you didn't know anything about what we had going on, or appeared not to. You didn't care. You didn't show any fucking thing. You didn't speak. Whatever happened, I know that he really bombed those interviews to the teams he didn't want to go to. And then he probably had two teams that he wasn't interested in that probably did tell him, hey, if you're here at this particular spot, we'll take him. And hell, they had different plans. And then after that, it's like fucking whatever. And I think that's what happened. I think he screwed himself.
I agree with that, and I just this is one of the things that I honestly hate most about Dion, and it's almost like a Trump quality in that he's psychologically incapable of admitting error or misjudgment or not like apologizing for anything. He's like a consummate like spin guy, and he always like when he's genuinely fucked, he like leans into like the Lord and the scripture bullshit.
Oh,
And never a guy,
oh man, that's
hey,
heavy.
we misjudged this. But I would love to know like what their thinking was. And were they lied to? Like, did somebody, one of these teams, give you like a strong, hey, we got you, whatever, we're picking nine, um, it is what it is. And we got you no matter what. And they relied on that to their detriment, and then that team went another way. Or did they just, like you said, misjudge this so badly and misevaluate, that he was this lock top 10 guy when nobody was giving that strong signal, and they proceeded, like they had, an ace up their sleeve to kind of bomb selected interviews and act like it didn't matter because hey, we're going here anyway. Like I
Yeah.
would love to know the truth of that, but the reality is we will never know the truth of that because
No.
Dion's not that type of person.
No, we'll never know. And like you said, a couple of a month or two prior to the draft, whenever it was, I mean, Dion was the main guy. Yeah, there's some teams that we're just not going to consider going to. You know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah,
should he viewed Shedeur as this blue chip quarterback that was going to be neck and neck with Cam, and
yeah,
then to that he doesn't do the any of the he doesn't do the official combine. He doesn't do the Senior Bowl or whatever, any of those things. And outside of Cam and Shedeur, every other quarterback did all of those things. And
yeah.
Shedeur should have been right there with Dylan Gabriel and all of those other guys in the official combine and in the Senior Bowl because he's not an elite quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's a
Well,
Kirk Cousins quarterback.
but that's and again, it's like, what is like the truth of it? Because for most of the college season, we're fringe Heisman guy, first round guy. This is a talented guy, and then like if you're like, who's lying to who on any of this? It becomes like a really weird thing.
I think they were lying to themselves
Well, that's possible too.
because
But but
Shedeur was never in contention
but
to be the number one overall pick.
but it was like I don't disagree with that, but there were multiple people outside of the Sanders family who had him in mock drafts in the first round and this and that until the very end. So
Yeah,
some of those people are operating off of weird stuff. I would also love to know, like, because there's a bunch of videos of him and Cam working out. So they must have done it multiple times. I don't know if they were like working out amongst themselves or they were with like one of these like quarterback guru guys. But I would love to have either been or gotten some quality feedback from these things that like, yeah, Cam's like totally different than Shedeur, like as
I
far
mean, I've read a lot. I've read a ton of that from
really,
McShay and all of those top guys. That Cam Ward has a much stronger arm. He's much more athletic. He's a liver arm. All of those terms that you utilize.
yeah, I've heard that in general from those guys. I'm talking about whoever was at those like workouts that they
Seeing them
had.
both in person at the same
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
like, and if they were working with a particular, like quarterback specialist or whatever, like I'd love to hear what that guy had to say over a beer or two.
What I'd love to know is what happened with the guys that they know. Like what happened with Tom Brady?
Yeah,
Like he's the owner of the Raiders. I mean, like what happened with that? Like
yeah,
we should have read the tea leaves because right before the heavy NFL draft talk, the Raiders go out and make a move for Geno. I mean, it's not like they didn't know the draft was coming up and Shedeur was going to be in the draft. You know
right.
what I mean? Like why do that so early and just and you could have still taken Shedeur. Like Geno is a veteran quarterback.
Yeah,
It's not
again,
like
up
you trade for Kyler Murray or something.
yeah, up until the fifth round, you could have gotten Shador, and you already had Genty, and you've got Geno's a quality quarterback, and you could have,
Yeah.
with Brock Bowers, you really could have, hey, we got a quarterback for now, a quarterback for the
Yeah,
future.
like that was his mentor. That was a guy he practiced with all of these when he as younger years, and he's stayed in contact with and throw with in off seasons. And what happened with that? What happened with the NFL ties? That Dion has that Shedeur sees in every off season with the NFL. Teams, if you will, coaches or what have you. Like, I wonder what happened. What had those people changed, or were they lying to Dion the entire time just because Dion is a lovable person and
But
they want to stay in Dion's graces?
that's what I'm saying. Like who's lying to who in all of this? Were they lying to themselves? Were people like, kind of buddying up to them and talking the talk, but not really believing in it? I mean, it's a weird dynamic, as far as that goes. And I mean, I always had some level of concern of what's it going to look like when he's coached by somebody other than his dad.
Yeah.
I always, and again, part of that is rooted in like my own experience coaching my kids